All right, well, we officially have 12:01, so I am going to go ahead and get started. Thanks again to everybody for joining us today. For those who don't know me, I am Stephanie Evans Kingsley, the Executive Director of the Kentucky Workforce Innovation Board. We have been hosting these partner spotlights the first Wednesday of each month to really lift up a lot of the work of our partners across our network so that we can all share in the good work and know what's happening out there across the Commonwealth. So today we have with us Johnny Collette, who is the Deputy Director of the University of Kentucky's Human Development Institute. Previously, Johnny has served as Assistant United States Education Secretary for the Office of Special Education and Rehabilitative Services. He is a wonderful partner with the KWIB and making sure that we are staying connected to all of the disability advocates in the community for workforce purposes. And really happy to have you here with us today, Johnny. And then we also have Cora McNabb, who is our Executive Director of the Office of Vocational Rehabilitation Services. And we will turn it over to our two panelists today. And thank you both for joining us.
Thank you, Stephanie. And we appreciate the opportunity to present today, and thank you all for taking time out of your schedules to be here and to listen. So I'm going to present first and talk to you, give you an overview of the Kentucky Office of Vocational Rehabilitation and the agency and its operations. And then I'm going to turn it over to Johnny to talk to you about RETAIN. RETAIN is a Department of Workforce grant that OVR is the lead on, and we partner with the University of Kentucky, the Human Development Institute, on that grant that aligns very closely to our mission. So if you would go ahead, Debbie, and advance. So what is vocational rehabilitation? Well, it's a program. We are the public vocational rehabilitation program that helps individuals with disabilities prepare for, enter, and engage in or advance in competitive employment. And like most of the workforce system, we have a dual partnership. Dual partners too. We serve individuals with disabilities, but we also serve employers. And so a part of what we do is to help businesses and employers recruit and retain and accommodate employees with disabilities. And our customers are adults with disabilities, youth and students, and businesses and employers. So next slide. This is our mission: to empower Kentuckians with disabilities to maximize independence and economic security through competitive integrated employment. So I just wanted to throw some statistics out here for you. A lot of times we say, well, why do we need vocational rehabilitation? Well, in Kentucky, 17.8% of people in Kentucky have a disability. And we know that overall the employment rate for individuals with disabilities in Kentucky is 32.8%. When you compare that to the rate of employment for people without disabilities at 67.2%, you can see the disparity in the statistics there. Next slide. So I'll talk a little bit about our funding. We are under the Department of Education, the Rehabilitation Services Administration. We're a partner in the American Job Centers, although we aren't under the Department of Labor. So our grant is a formula grant that's based on, takes into account the population and per capita income in the state of Kentucky. And if you heard John Gregory talk at the last partner spotlight, he talked about the fact that their funding comes from an approved state plan. And that's the case for the Office of Vocational Rehabilitation as well. I'll One of the things that we have is a match for our funding. So we are required to match our federal award with state funds, with non-federal funds in order to receive the full amount. The federal share is 78.7, and then the state share is 21.3%. So to give you an example or an idea of what that means is that for every 22 cents funded by the Commonwealth, 78 cents are received in federal funds. So for example, in 2021, our federal award was $61,776,010, and we needed to have a little bit over 16 million in general funds in order to pull down that full award. If we're not able to make our match, then we have to return funds to the federal government, which they in turn will take and distribute to other states that are able to make a match. So that's very important for us. Next slide. Just to give you a few program metrics, in 2021, we served a little bit over 38,000. And of those, 2,880 exited our program in competitive employment. They were earning an average of $18.45 an hour and 34 hours a week. So our program, like everyone else, has been affected with COVID. So especially the successful employment outcomes are down for what they were pre-COVID. But overall, we felt like the staff did a really good job providing supports for individuals. We have around 373 full-time 18A merit employees and about 63 additional contractual staff that provide services statewide. And we have around 45 offices. We are located in a lot of the comprehensive centers, but we also have a lot of standalone offices. We have to be Assure. One of our certifications in the state plan is to assure that we can deliver services statewide. Just a few gender, race statistics for you to look at. Pretty equally, we serve both males and females. And as far as serving individuals from different ethnic backgrounds, cultures, our statistics are pretty well aligned with the overall statistics in the state. The disability type for sensory disabilities is the largest group, and that is both deaf and hard of hearing and individuals that are blind and visually impaired. Physical disabilities, cognitive disabilities, and then psychological and mental disabilities. I'll talk just a little bit about the structure of the agency. We have 4 divisions in the agency: the Division of Field Services, which is the largest division, where most of the boots on the ground are out across the state providing those services. Then we also have the division of the Carl D. Perkins Vocational Training Center, one of our training centers that's located in Thelma. The Division of Blind Services, and that includes our center in Louisville, Kentucky, the McDowell Center, that delivers blind services, training to individuals, and then the Division of Business Enterprises. So the Division of Field Services that I mentioned, which is our largest division, give you just a few VR basics here. That VR is an eligibility program, not an entitlement program. Income is not a factor in determining eligibility, but In instances, we may consider it as a part of the cost of certain services. Once a person has completed the application process for vocational rehabilitation, our staff, the VR counselor, has about 60 days to determine eligibility. We are not an emergency services provider. So the process for an individual entering service is a comprehensive one. And you know, a lot of times we'll have individuals tell us they need a job and they need it right away. But we have a lot of, you know, certain things that we need to do and put in place to assure that that person is successful. And our services are not intended to be long-term, but if supports are needed for the long-term, we work with other providers and potential resources to provide those long-term supports. So this just is the VR process at a glance. We get referrals and we have initial contact. Then there's an application process, and the VR counselor does a thorough assessment of the needs of that individual. They have to determine eligibility. Then they develop a plan, and the individual goes into active services that are associated with that plan. And then we hope then that we move on to employment and have successful closure. This is the eligibility criteria for VR services. The individual must have a disability. The disability has to result in a significant barrier to employment, and they must require VR services to prepare for and enter and engage in or advance in competitive employment. And the individual must be presumed eligible to achieve an employment outcome. Services that we have available: vocational guidance and counseling. That is the foundation of our services. It's the important piece where the VR counselor engages that person in the process from beginning to end. Job placement assistance and job readiness, college or vocational training, supported employment, which is just what the name says, and that is where someone with a significant disability would require more intensive supports to become employed. Skills training or on-the-job training, job coaching or tutoring, transportation, interpreter or translator services, then assistive rehabilitation technology, and referral services to other needed supports. There is no cost to apply for VR services and to find out if you're eligible for the program. And depending on financial resources, you may be asked to help contribute to the cost of certain services. The overall goal of the program is competitive integrated employment, or one of our many acronyms we use is CIEOs. It's really what everybody wants. The success for the individual and success for the program. I'll talk a little bit about the 4 divisions, the programs that are in there, and then if I can have Debbie send this out afterwards. If you want to go to our website, you'll be able to see, whoops, did you go back to Carl Perkins?
Sorry, technical difficulties here. Hang
You're
on.
fine.
Okay.
There, Carl D. Perkins. I mentioned the Carl D. Perkins Center in Thelma, Kentucky. It's a comprehensive center that operates several programs and services that enable individuals to achieve their vocational goals. We do a lot of training there. Before COVID, at the time that COVID hit, and back in March of 2020, if you all remember, when a lot of us were sent home to work remotely, we had around 150 students that were residing at the center and participating in programs. All of our programs there are credentialed. And we had to send 150 students home. We are now beginning to phase students back in slowly to the center. It is a residential center. And so, we've, of course, wanted our staff to stay safe and the consumers that we serve to stay safe. So we haven't had the center open at full capacity for going on 2 years now. So, and that's been very difficult and affected, of course, our outcomes for services as well. But we have, like I said, we have a little bit over 20 students that are there right now, and we're going to begin slowly bringing them back while we mitigate the effects of COVID. You can go to the next slide. Transition services for students is a big part of what we do. And of course, as you all know already, I'm sure the goal of transition is to identify and begin working with students before they graduate, so there isn't a delay in supports when they exit school. You know, the school bus has been coming to the door for 12 years, and they've gone somewhere from 8 to 4:30, and then all of a sudden the school bus stops. And so we hope that we can get involved early on so that there isn't a disruption in the services for that individual. And the schools assist us with referring students and sharing information about VR. And we can take applications on students in high school ages 14 to 21. If you've heard about us or talked to any of the staff, you've probably heard about pre-employment transition services. In 2014, at the reauthorization of WIOA, they put this stipulation in there that requires that we set aside at least 15% of our federal funds to provide pre-employment transition student services to students with disabilities. And this was a large, huge shift for Voc Rehab, because prior to this, we could only serve those individuals that were determined eligible. But now we can provide services to individuals that are potentially eligible, that would, if they applied for our services, be eligible. So a student with a disability is in an educational program that is 14 to 22 years of age, is eligible for receiving special education or related services under IDEA, or is an individual with a disability for purposes of Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act as amended, are eligible for these services. And we work with the special education cooperatives, with JAG is another program, but we work with the local schools to assure that these services are provided. We have a close relationship with the University of Kentucky and HDI. And as I said, you'll hear from Johnny for a few minutes. And they assist us with the provision of these services. Next slide. The Division of Blind Service, the title of that division, I think pretty well tells you what that division does, but they specialize in providing services to individuals that are blind and visually impaired. And under that program, there are two aspects to it, not only the employment, but also independent living, and helping individuals who are new to their vision impairment Not everyone is born with a vision impairment. Some people acquire that through an accident or an injury. And we've seen a lot of an increase in services in this area for individuals who perhaps sustain a gunshot wound that has caused them to lose part of their vision or all. And then also substance abuse, whether it's an instance where a meth lab blows up and someone loses their blindness in that, or another cause for that. And then also when you consider the large baby boomer population, of which I am a part of, people are living longer and having, that is a large population of individuals with macular degeneration. Next slide. This tells you the different programs that the Division of Blind Services has. The McDowell Center is a residential center in Louisville. We have not opened that residential center back up since COVID, but we hope to sometime into the summer to be able to open the McDowell Center back up. We have the Independent Living Older Blind, Orientation and Mobility. The Bioptic Driving Program is a program where individuals that qualify, meet the criteria, are able to learn to drive with a small bioptic device. Next slide. The last division of our agency is the Division of Kentucky Business Enterprises that is a program authorized under the Randolph-Shepard Act that trains individuals who are blind to operate vending facilities. And if you're a state government employee, you're aware of the cafeterias or the snack shops that are in the buildings in Frankfurt that our blind vendors operate. And then we have several locations across the state in the IRS buildings, post offices, most federal buildings, and then also in some state operated facilities. Next slide. Well, that was a lot of information, and I saw someone put that something in the chat box as if we would share this presentation, and we'd be glad to. And if you click on the link on this last slide, it'll take you to our website where you can learn more about the Office of Vocational Rehabilitation. So I tried to give you the highlights today. There's a lot more that I could have shared, but certainly anytime you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. Debbie, do you want me to take questions now or let Johnny go ahead?
I think we can go ahead and let Johnny go and then hold questions towards the end. Things might resonate and ideas might pop.
So I'm trying to remember, Johnny, back how many years ago it's been now. I guess it's been about 3.5 going on 4 years when we started the first phase of Retain, and now we're in phase 2. So I'll turn it over to you, Johnny.
Sorry. Thank you, Cora, and thanks, Stephanie, for the invitation today. And we just really are grateful for your partnership and that of the whole KWIB team, and just excited to be able to share a little bit about this. We know that with this number of folks in the meeting, that there are probably individuals who have heard a little bit about Retain, a lot about Retain, maybe somewhere in the middle. So we're hopeful that the few minutes we'll share together today will be something there for everybody. We do have a couple of my colleagues on the call as well. I think Shirley Cron and Kimberly Wickert are also on the call from the Human Development Institute and deeply involved in leadership here with the implementation efforts around Retain Kentucky. And if you have questions, feel free to drop those in the chat box along the way. And I know Shirley and Kimberly will be able to help address those as we move forward. But just before we get started, in terms of the actual slide presentation, we're really hopeful that Retain can benefit you from wherever you lead in terms of your role on the KWIB. We're grateful for, as I mentioned, the KWIB's partnership around so many things, and that includes the KWIB's partnership around Retain. So we're hopeful that Retain can help the KWIB advance your efforts and your plans around making sure that Kentucky's able to move forward in terms of its workforce and in terms of training and development. We particularly hope that Retain can be helpful in KWIB efforts around addressing barriers to employment and certainly your areas of focus around workforce participation for people with disabilities. So again, thank you for your partnership and the opportunity to be here. There we go. Thank you. So Retain is, I think Cora may have mentioned earlier that it is a Department of Labor grant, and the focus here is very important and very specific on individuals who were not injured on the job, but individuals who have non-work related injuries or illnesses that may impact their ability to continue work. So that's what this grant is about. That's what this work is about, and really promoting those return to work policies and making sure that includes direct intervention research, increasing the capacity of individuals around these things. And I think of critical importance here is employer and healthcare driven leadership. We want to make sure that those who know the most about these issues are informing conversations related to these matters and influencing decisions, influencing recommendations that ultimately go to folks in our state around this notion of how do we amplify the opportunities and options for individual Kentuckians who have been injured or ill off the job. How do we amplify their opportunities to stay at work or to return to work as soon as possible? So we want to make sure that is informed by those who know the most about it, those who are closest to it, and of course, including the individual themselves. So it started as a pilot program, as Cora mentioned. So in phase 1, we served over 200 Kentuckians and trained over 1,000 professionals. As we move into phase 2, and that was a regional model in phase 1, but as we move into and have moved into phase 2 over the next several years, that will expand statewide. And we will serve 3,200 individuals in Kentucky who are at risk of exiting the workforce due to, as we mentioned before, a non-work related injury or illness. And you can see there at the bottom, there were 4 other states who are continuing work in phase 2 of Retain with respect to the Department of Labor grant. Those are Ohio, Kansas, Minnesota, and Vermont. You see our partners here, and we're grateful, of course, for our partnerships and certainly the leadership of the Education Labor Cabinet, particularly our partners, Cora and team at the Kentucky Office of Vocational Rehabilitation, who lead this. We get the pleasure of partnering and leading around the implementation efforts related to Retain. But you see there on the screen a list of incredible partners who have been partners along the way and will continue to help, again, inform this work and influence decisions related to this work moving forward over the next, about 4 years. So why does it matter? A few things that just always stand out to me. We know this, you know this, many of you know this better than me because this is the work you do every day, and you're an employer, you're connected to an employer, you're providing services. In some way, you know that when people leave the labor force, it's can be detrimental, certainly to them, but also to their families, to you as employers, but also to the economy. And every time we talk about this, the next 2 bullet points that I'm going to share always just strike me. And I'm sure you know this. I've been learning this, but it still compels me. So the odds of an employee ever returning to the workforce drops 50% by the 12th week after injury or illness onset. I mean, to me, that's compelling enough. The next one certainly is. After a year, that chance decreases to almost 0. But at the same time, we know that many injured or ill workers could remain in their jobs if they receive timely coordinated assistance. So these data, these points always, I think, emphasize for me the importance of early, effective, coordinated intervention and support, and how critical those things are. Because the window's closing here. Based on these data, it's pretty clear that that the window's open for an opportunity to intervene and to coordinate across all of the actors in an individual's life. But it's also pretty clear that that window closes pretty quickly. So this is all about helping Kentuckians, our fellow Kentuckians, stay connected to the labor force. And sort of the bottom line is we want to help employers keep valuable staff and help employees keep their worker identity. We also really believe that Retain can contribute to the Commonwealth's broader commitment to the health and well-being of our citizens and to the economic development of our state. We want to contribute to that. We want to be a value add in that through this project. And we do believe, we saw it in phase one, we are seeing it, and we'll continue to see it in phase two, that we're going to be helping Kentucky citizens in this project to remain connected to the workforce and to reduce the need for ongoing federal disability benefits, for example. And one of the other things we're also very committed to in this time in which we all live is that Retain is also helping address the enduring complications of COVID-19 on the physical and the mental health of Kentucky's workforce. There are some things we know about that now, right? In terms of the enduring implications of COVID. I suspect there's a whole lot we don't yet know about what the enduring implications of COVID will be on physical and mental health of Kentucky's workforce, but we want to be a value add to that. We want to contribute to that in terms of the broader commitment our state has to the health and well-being of our citizens. But, helping employers keep valuable staff, employees keep their worker identity. We are committed to things like, being able to respond immediately and making sure that that response is interdisciplinary, that it's not just sort of this continued fragmented approach, right, to supporting folks. And we want to make it easier for folks to navigate the system, not harder for folks to navigate the system. So we want it to be interdisciplinary and really focused on the person-centered strategies that we think will be most helpful, and individuals tell us would be most helpful to them. And then certainly peer supports, training of healthcare and employees, which of course we did a lot of in phase one. We're going to continue to do a lot more moving forward. So how it works, and I know I'm being quick here, but we're going to continue to be available to you. I want to be respectful of your time today, but we will continue to be available to you to unpack any of this in more detail for you individually or you and your team. So we are only ever an email, phone call, text, or something away, and we will find a way to get to yes. Whatever your question is, we'll find a way to get to yes, and we'll try to be as responsive as possible to you around information related to Retain. So just keep that in mind, even though I'm moving a bit quick today in terms of time. But every participant who enrolls, eligible participant who enrolls, is going to have a return to work coordinator. They're going to have a return to work plan, and that's helps them identify what their goals are going to be with respect to staying at work or returning to work, and also helping them identify the steps they need to take to achieve those goals. So again, this is a person-centered plan. It's interdisciplinary. It's person-centered, and we want to identify those person-centered goals and those person-centered steps that an individual needs to take to achieve those goals. And these participants also receive connection to community resources based on their need. In terms of eligibility and enrollment, we started in terms of phase two of this work. We started enrolling participants in October of 2021, so just a couple of months ago. And enrollment will continue through March of 2024. Who's eligible? If individuals are 18 or older and living in Kentucky, they've had a non-work related illness or injury that could impact their ability to work or perform their jobs, and they're employed now or have worked in the last year. That's it, right? Those are the eligibility criteria. That's what needs to be true for individuals to be eligible to participate in this study. So we hope that we've made the referral process pretty easy. If not, let us know and we will continue to refine it and improve it and make it better for both the employee and employers. But you see there a number that folks can call in terms of referral. Could also email retain@uky.edu or visit the website and you have the link there. There's also a screener that really helps folks determine if they may be eligible to participate. And there's a hyperlink there to that screener. But I tell you, I did just check this today. And some of you, I don't know if you could, I'm sure you can. I checked it this morning. That handy dandy little QR code works great. And that QR code is just another way and another option to get to this screener so that individuals or employers working with individuals or other folks in their support network can to kind of look at that screener, very simple, very quick, and help determine if the individual may be eligible to participate in this study. We're also really seeing Retain as an opportunity to expand services and improve systems. And one of the key strategies, and be happy to come and talk about this a little bit later at length if it's of interest to you or your team, but and we again appreciate KWIB's involvement in this, and specifically Stephanie and Debbie. You've been so committed to the Inclusive Worker Health Leadership Network and others on this call from the chamber as well. But this is a key effort in Retain Kentucky, and we're referring to it as the Inclusive Worker Health Leadership Network, and that has those folks we were talking about, right? Leaders from workforce, leaders from healthcare, the folks who know the most about these issues that and these sort of things we're trying to untangle and problems we're trying to solve. So we've got medical professionals, we've got state public health leaders, we've got employers at the local level, workforce development at the state level. Kentucky Chamber is a key partner in this work. And this network is focusing on that notion of coordination. Remember, we want to make it easier, not harder, for people to navigate systems, especially in those critical times when they become injured or ill off the job and wondering what that means for the future for them and for their family. So we focus on how do we better coordinate across all of the relevant actors, across all of the systems, different funding streams, different this, different that, right? How do we get better at coordinating locally and across the state to make sure we increase the potential for our fellow Kentucky citizens to stay on the job or return to work? And this network will also make recommendations regarding necessary policy and systems change. That those recommendations will be passed on to state level committees and councils, and ultimately recommendations will be shared from this group with the governor. So very excited about the work of this group. And I will say one thing here, just sort of as a teaser, and hopefully we'll be able to share more about this in a couple of months to come. But one of the key things that has come out of this group that's now been meeting for a few months into phase 2, one of the important things that's come out of this started with a question. The question was something like, you know, when we refer to an inclusive workforce in Kentucky, because we talk about that a lot, when we refer to an inclusive workforce in Kentucky, what are we even talking about? You know, if we ask 10 different people, do we get 20 different answers, right? Maybe we do, maybe that's okay, but we thought there might be some value in trying to have all of these diverse groups of folks and perspectives together saying, what do we mean by that with respect to our efforts here in Kentucky Retain, but perhaps even broader than that as a state? What do we mean by inclusive workforce? So we've been working hard on that. You will see some of that in the next weeks to come, and would love your feedback on that. But we're trying to be very intentional about making sure that when we talk about Kentucky's workforce and economic development and all the things that matter and all the things you as leaders know best, when we talk about workforce and economic development in Kentucky, we want to make sure that we are intentionally talking about all of our citizens and not just some. And we have so many opportunities across our state, as you know very well, so many efforts, so many initiatives. This is one that we're really excited about. I hope you can tell we're excited about, and again, very grateful for your partnership in. We hope you'll visit the Retain Kentucky media site and subscribe there. There are specific resources there for employers and others who are thinking about these matters. We've had several, as you can see there on the screen, employment seminar series. These happen every month. and you see some of the previous topics that we have dealt with there. And Kimberly Wickert on our team does a great job planning those and getting, just the right people there each month to talk about these matters that impact our workforce in Kentucky. And just upcoming, and I'll place it in the chat in a few minutes, we have on February 15th, the next employer seminar series will be on COVID fatigue and mental wellness in the workplace. So again, I'll just, for your information, drop that in the chat. If Kimberly or someone doesn't beat me to it, would love for you to join that, and certainly the media site, and subscribe there if this is of interest to you. We have a number of other resources that we can share with you, a general article around what we've been talking about today and our efforts in Kentucky, retain social media guide if you want to sort of help amplify some of these efforts, a referral form, and some success stories that you can share, and also that handbill that includes the QR code that I shared with you a few minutes ago. We can get all those to you. I think Debbie has those, and so one of us, we can get it to you if you want it. We won't presume upon what you want, but certainly can be responsive if you do. So you see some names there, folks to contact, and these are individuals on our team at HDI at UK who are working closely every day in this work around retain, and we will be responsive to you and hopefully helpful in the work that you lead every day. So thanks for the opportunity again to be here. I will pause there and see if there are any questions, but thanks again.
Thanks so much, Johnny, for joining us. And just wanted to put it out there that the Inclusive Worker Network that has been working with Johnny and his team is really focused on other ways that we can connect our employers to this dialogue. So if anyone is interested in participating in these conversations or getting more information about how to get involved, we are really looking to connect that piece of what our strong suit is with our employer network to the rest of the team. So happy to take any referrals questions anytime now or later to make sure we can get those ideas and thoughts at the table. We are also looking for an employer chair, I believe, to the subcommittee for Employment First. So there are two ways that our employers could get involved in this work, should they be so inclined.
Stephanie, since you mentioned Employment First, and of course, Employment First Council and the work there, just in case your members, folks on the call, are not interested, and just in terms of sharing information, that's all this is about. Senate Bill 104, Danny Carroll has filed Senate Bill 104 on, and it really does kind of move to codify the Employment First Council. So your members may be interested in that. It's just kind of started in the Senate and come out of committee, but that's something that may be of interest connected to your previous note. I'm sorry. Thank you.
And I see we've got some conversation happening in the chat, and I'm sorry I missed it as it was coming along. Amy, did you want to lift up your question verbally? Or are you good keeping it in the chat?
Either whatever works, Stephanie, but I was just
Okay.
wondering what the term COVID fatigue refers to. I know you have a whole session on that, but is that like actual fatigue symptoms that people have after they've had COVID, or does that just mean everybody's getting tired of COVID?
Well, well, while both could be true, I think it's the former. Kimberly, will you speak to that?
Absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up. So yeah, we will be focusing on causes of worker fatigue, such as changes in work routines and schedules, the additional degrees of stress due to the adversities related to COVID-19. And that can include exposure, ongoing exposure, as we're in another surge. So we're really going to be focusing on, when we speak of workers, workers across the board, not just individuals who may have had COVID and are experiencing symptoms of fatigue from that.
Okay, so it sounds like a little more like stress related and that sort of thing.
Absolutely. And coping mechanisms, most importantly, will be the takeaways. And Kristen Dahl is wonderful. If you've never heard her speak, you go away feeling like you just, have had a few minutes of just relaxation and stress management because she's really great at what she does. So join us if you can.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
All right, so if anyone has any other questions, we are happy to entertain them at the time. But also, if there is nothing else to add, we are always happy to give you 14 minutes of your life back. So kind of last call here, but we appreciate everyone's time today. And again, if you have any questions about, connecting to the Employment First Network or any of the other initiatives that Johnny and Cora have talked about today, we're happy to provide them. And that Debbie will be sending out both the PowerPoint and information through the meeting invite today as a post-meeting packet. So if anybody has any questions about getting their hands on their materials, it will be coming to you after the recording wraps up and Debbie gets all that organized and taken care of. So thank you all for your time today and have a wonderful Wednesday afternoon. Oh, coming preview, we do have, we're gonna have our March panel on diversity and inclusion in the workforce. So Johnny's cohort at HDI, Katie Whaley will be joining us with the new executive director of the Chamber's workforce, or I think it's just the Chamber DEI Center. We're still recruiting some other individuals to that panel, but that will be our March coming soon presentation. So thanks y'all, and we'll see you next month, hopefully.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Cora.